Coogs house. It's officially game week. Houston Cougar football is around the corner, and the Stephen F. Austin Lumberjacks come to town with a head coach that's also known for turning programs around.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Cougs, the daily podcast about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth. Whether you're a Houston fan or just a hater who can stop by, thank you for making Locked On Cougs your first listen of the day. Appreciate you making your first listen each and every day here at Locked On Cougs. You enjoy the conversation, but you don't know what to say. Tell us in the comments down below as I sit here in my Smitty's hat from Lockhart, Texas. What is your favorite small town barbecue joints? We talk a lot about Nacogdoches today. Listen, I'm bringing on guest Cory Hogue, who's doing a bunch of cool stuff with non-FBS football in the state of Texas, to talk to us about the SFA, the Stephen F. Austin Lumberjacks. We're going to start off talking about Coach Colby Carthel and the rebuilding job he's done. Then I'll talk to him about the defense, the names to know, and we'll get into some about like predictions, stuff like that as well. Cory's a fantastic resource and can't wait to jump in. Let's do it right now. And we are joined by, I'm going to say, the godfather of non-FBS football in the state of Texas, Cory Hogue. Cory, I want to get into SFA. I want to talk some Lumberjacks, which is an awesome mascot, frankly. But I got to ask you before we get too far. Nacogdoches, Texas. I think of small town Texas. I think of barbecue. Is there a barbecue joint in Nacogdoches or near Nacogdoches in that road trip you can think of that sticks out as somewhere people got to go?
I mean, I don't know of a specific barbecue joint, but I'm sure if Colby Carthel is the head coach at Stephen F. Austin, there's some good eateries in Nacogdoches. That man, he's got a saying, if you ever will follow Colby, he says, if you can't be a big-time coach, be a big coach, and he'll show a picture of his plate. So I'm sure there's some good places to eat.
That's quite a quote. I want to talk about Colby Carthel and stuff like that here at the start of this, because we talked in pre-pod a little bit behind the curtain here that he gets there and kind of turns this program around in a weird way that I don't think people from the FBS looking back understand quite where they were. How would you talk about Colby? You mentioned you followed him for a minute now, and what he's done at Stephen F. Austin there in Nacogdoches, the program he's built up here.
Well, and when you talk about Colby, you got to go all the way back. He's got some real deep Lone Star Conference roots. West Texas A&M, his dad, Don Carthel's getting inducted into the West Texas A&M Hall of Fame. What a great coach he was there for the Buffaloes for so many years in Canyon. And Colby was his DC, and everybody knew Colby's path was to eventually become a head coach. He took over a horrendous Texas A&M Commerce program. I'm talking a team that was getting beaten conference by 70 points. They were bad, and he turned them into a national champion in about 5-6 years. And so Stephen F. Austin, they were bad. He came in, and we were talking pre-pod before his very first game. He had to kick a ton of seniors off the bus, including his starting punter, because
there's a pun intended there somewhere.
There's actually a story with that. Colby hates it when I tell it. That's why I always like to tell this one. But there was so many, and he faced NCAA sanctions. Like the first time he talked to me, he said, "Cory, just want you to know, coming down, there's NCAA sanctions on an academic scandal that was before I got here." And so he, and then you've got the punter who he pulled the starting punter off the bus. He had thrown some other kid in there. They're at Baylor, right? And this is Matt Rule's Baylor. These are the good Baylor teams. And they're opening the season in his very first game at SFA. 3 and out. They lose yardage. The punter goes back and he kicks it right into the up back. Right, like he just kicks it right into his own guy. And I've never let Colby forget that. And he says the rest of the year, every coach call him and talk about that all-star punter he had back. And it's funny because Colby takes that in stride, right? The year before that, he was calling a 4th down play in a national semifinal in the shadow of his own goal line a surprise fourth down play in the third quarter that made it, and that ended up leading them into that victory, that game at home, and then in the national championship game the following week. So this man knows how to coach. We talk about it, what he did at SFA. Man, it didn't take him long. 2021, they were in the playoffs. They had Cam Ward overtime, almost beat them at UIW. They won the WAC championship, the very first when it came back, and now it's gone again, the Western Athletic Conference. They won the WAC title that year with a game against Abilene Christian. So he's built it up. I will say the program took a slight step back the last couple of years. And so this is a very, very big year for Colby Carthel and Stephen F. Austin Lumberjacks, because let me tell you, Parker, expectations are high in Nacogdoches for the Jacks this year.
Well, and I heard one interview, he was saying that, their preseason pick to finish number 2, but last year the preseason pick to be number 5, and they finished at 3rd. So he's still expecting to exceed expectations. I think it's interesting, though. You mentioned the gutsiness, the football ball coach, the stones of the guy calling a play from his shadow of his own goalposts. What kind of is that the MO of the Stephen F. Austin? What would someone who watches FCS football year round describe them as? What's their culture like for opponents?
I mean, when it comes to, they're going to punch you in the mouth. The Colby Carthel team, they're going to punch you in the mouth. That's what they're going to do. They're going to be physical. They're going to get after you for 4 quarters. They're not going to quit. That team that played Baylor had every reason to give up that day, and they did not. And he was starting freshman on his defensive line, true freshman on the defensive line in that game. But there's never a quit, and that's the thing. Colby knows how to get, and he's a great coach. He knows how to get things done. There have been some questionable X's and O's things, and maybe some game calls over the last couple of years that have some national guys a little uncertain about their prospects nationally this year. But I mean, they're picked second in conference simply because UIW has been a perennial playoff team now. G.J. Kinney was their coach. Now he's at Texas State. If you remember Eric Morris before that, now he's at North Texas. UIW is a machine, and they've built it up, and Clint Killo's kept it going. That's why they're second. They have every good chance. If that game in San Antonio is a tough one, but if they can manage to win that one, they've got a schedule that they could win the Southland this year.
So obviously a lot of stuff can be dependent on quarterback and roster construction, and that's obviously more fluid now than it's ever been. What are they? Are we looking at a lot of run game? Are they spreading you out and throwing all? What are they going to do to Houston to try and pull off this? It'd be a pretty big upset, obviously, but what are they going to do schematically there? You have any idea?
Well, Chris Ross is the offensive coordinator. He came from a long lineage of high school success, and they're going to lean on the players and what their strengths are, and that's how they're going to manage that offense. And let me tell you, their strengths. You want to know about what you're going to see from them? You've got a quarterback in Sam Vidlak who is coming back for his final year of college football, whatever number it is. The young man has got a family, right? But he's a key piece of that team. And even without him, though, last year he was injured, they still beat Abilene Christian at home. And that was a playoff team in the FCS that won a playoff game. So even if Sam Vidlak is down, they've still got quarterbacks behind them. I know we were talking, they've got a freshman coming in that 2-3 years, maybe you see a JT Kitna at a quarterback there at Stephen F. But right now, man, it is Sam Vidlak's team. He's got most of his offensive line returning, most of his key players outside. You talk Kylon Harris. He is good, but let me tell you, that running back room is solid. They can pound on you. They will come at you. They're going to test you up the middle. They're going to test you physically. They're going to test you outside, and if they have enough speed to get by you, they'll go deep every now and then. So you better be ready when it comes defense. Colby's a defensive guy, right? Like, and they're going to be multiple, and his defensive coordinator, Mike Mutts, does a fantastic job. They're going to show you all kinds of looks. Defenses anymore, it doesn't matter if you line up 3-4, 4-3, they all end up looking the same, and you got to figure out who's coming from where these days.
So I want to talk about Mike Mutts in the defense for a second too, though. Before we get too far, today's show is brought to you by our buddies over at Rugy. Now, guys, you've probably heard of Viagra, Cialis. You maybe even tried them. You may not want to admit it. I mean, if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to be Rugiet ready. Now, Rugy is the next generation prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike usual pills that can take hours, Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue. It kicks in fast, on average in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. Listen, it's completely online. Board-certified doctors get in touch with you. Comes in discreet packaging to your door. No questions asked. Head to Rugiet.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege to get 15% off today. It's Rugiet, RUGIET.com/LockedOnCollege. Use promo code LockedOnCollege for 15% off your order today. And again, I'm joined by Cory Hogue. Cory Hogue's got a Substack, all things non-FBS football in the state of Texas. Y'all make sure you go check him out. But Cory, you mentioned Mutts. There is one thing about Mutts that concerns me. He's only been there a couple years. He's not been there very long. But he knows Willie Fritz. I got some names in front of me. Mutts knows Willie Fritz as well as anyone. He was the linebacker coach at Tulane before taking this defensive coordinator job. In watching them play, do you feel like, is it the kind of thing where he clearly has some of the Tulane in his blood and DNA? Is he doing his own stuff? What is that? You mentioned 3-4-4-3 doesn't necessarily matter, but what is he doing on that side of the ball? Do they pressure? Are they blitzing a lot? Are they playing zone? Like, what are they doing a lot with Mutts in charge?
Well, it just depends. Each game is different. And I'm sure this game, it's really hard to tell what they're going to do because Mutts does know Willie Fritz so well, and he knows that offense. He knows what he likes to do. And so, listen, if we know that, so does Willie. And I would suspect that he's drawing up some things to kind of maybe throw him off. That's going to be a fun thing to watch, especially early first, second quarter, first few drives. See if one of them kind of has the edge over the other. Listen, eventually I think talent will take over. I think that's kind of how that looks at, but I could see Mutts giving Willie some problems for the first couple quarters.
As you mentioned going through problems, I should point out we briefly went past receiver Kylon Harris is a preseason All-American, and first of all, I don't mean this negatively. I didn't realize guys like that at the FCS level were going to necessarily stay at the FCS level. We talked in pre-pod about like roster limits and maybe not finding money places and that kind of stuff, but that's a big-time talent to return. Carthel's mentioned several times that they returned a lot of their roster, actually. Kylon Harris is a big name. He's got pro prospects in his future, right? What can you tell us about his game as a receiver?
Well, if you want pro prospects, SFA has 2 of them in the NFL right now. Xavier Gibson, ring a bell, Jets wide receiver, returned that punt on Monday Night Football when Aaron Rodgers was for the game-winning touchdown, right? And then John Franklin Myers was also he's also an SFA guy. So listen, they've got that kind of, and they've got it over here. They got Kylon Harris, and on the defensive side, Ed Bobineau. Don't ever look past that guy. That guy was a really high-rated recruit coming out of high school, and so he can man that defensive line. He was there on that 2018 team out there against Baylor. So he's a grown man now, right? And so you're going to have to worry about that. The talent level isn't maybe the exact same as FBS. It's not far off. Where you get the difference with FCS teams is depth. And that's why as the game goes on and they're rotating their guys in, guys get tired, the teams, you got much better depth when you're an FBS school. And also you got better money, right? Like Stephen F can keep a Kylon Harris because most all of whatever they get NIL collective wise can pretty much go to him and a few other guys. They don't need to spread it around, and you can make an attractive offer to keep him from going FBS. The other thing is relationships, man. There are a bunch of kids that still to this day want to go where they're wanted and where they're loved. And Colby Carthel, if you're his guy, he's going to love on you all day. It ain't always going to be nice, but it's going to be funny sometimes, and you're going to end up getting better.
I like that. It ain't always gonna be nice. It's gonna be funny sometimes. Is a pretty good line. I think when I think of like legendary football coaches, I think a lot of them would fit that description. Actually,
well, I mean, look, if you're talking, I would put Colby up there with any of the legends. When you get to know that man, it is incredible. The range that he could do. You watch him just on Twitter, right? Like he's got his kids pulling out teeth with a bow and stuff, right? Like they'll tie to string to it. He's a ranch guy. He's a Texas guy. He's a farmer. They've got a ranch. They own one out there near Commerce, Texas. So and his wife's a better fisherman than Colby. Posted a picture of that a couple weeks ago.
This isn't a fishing podcast. It's like he's got a lot of fishing on his social media profiles. Like he likes it.
He loves fishing and hunting. He is an outdoorsman. That's what he does in the off season. I don't know if he still does, but he used to take a yearly trip to Alaska. I have a cousin that owns a brewery up there, and he knew right where that brewery was. He had visited Kenai River a couple of times, but that's who he is, right? He's that rugged, that outdoorsman. You know what you're going to get. You know who you have, and he's just a good dude and fun to be around.
I got it. I mean, look, he looks like he's having fun online. And so that's interesting that you say that. I want to, not to put you too much on this, but I do want to talk predictions a little bit. Before we get too far, I do want to remind you that today's show is also brought to you by our buddies over at Open Phone. If you're running a business and every missed call can be money left on the table, right? If you think about the last time you needed a service as a customer, if the first person didn't answer, you didn't wait. You just moved on. And that's why you need Open Phone for your business, so you never miss an opportunity to connect with your customers. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system designed to streamline and scale your customer communications. You can juggle 2 phone calls at once. Use the Open Phone solutions. They also have an AI agent that handles after call hours, answers commonly asked questions, captures leads. You never miss anything ever again. See why over 60,000 businesses trust Open Phone. They're offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedoncollege. That's Openphone, openphone.com/lockedoncollege. They'll even port over your existing numbers, all for free. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers. Today's show is also brought to you by our buddies over at Prize Picks. Now, this episode is specifically brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy platform that lets you turn your football predictions into real rewards as we jump into our predictions very soon. Preseason's already heating up. College football is not too far behind. Week 0 is this weekend, folks. And whether you're into big time quarterbacks, breakout running backs, Prize Picks makes it easy to get in the game. Listen, Avery Johnson's max discount is over a single half of a passing yard, right? That's over a single half of a passing yard with Avery Johnson. Go check that out. Flex play options also totally a game changer when it comes to setting your picks. Even when one of your picks misses, you can still double your money. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 lineups after you play your first $5 lineups. Code LOCKEDONCollege to $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. Prize Picks. Run your game. As we jump into talking prediction again, here with Cory Hogue, Cory Hogue Sports. They got a Substack. Go check out all things non-FBS football in the state of Texas. Cory, SFA has knocked on the door of one of these upsets a couple of times under Colby Carthel. I I don't want it to happen against my Cougars, but it does feel like they're going to be down the door one of these times. What's it going to look like? Is it going to be last-second heroics, a gutsy? We mentioned the call with his own guys, in the shadow of their own goalposts. Is it going to be one of those kinds of play? What's it going to be like when they finally pull that off?
It's so hard for an FCS team to do that. And we have seen, you talk close calls, SFA had one at Texas Tech quite a few years ago, and Abilene Christian and Maverick McIver had one last year where they almost beat Texas Tech. Every year, these teams, North Dakota State, Iowa doesn't even want to play them anymore, right?
Yeah.
Every year, you've got those teams that can. Is SFA, do they have the capability? Yes. They're gonna have to be in the game. If for them to win it, it would have to come down to the end of the game, close, probably a late drive, maybe a last minute stop, something of that nature to get there. I mean, that's how they're going to have to do it. They're probably going to have to get a couple of turnovers, right? We're talking first game of the season. And so neither team's going to be quite at their sharpest. And you also have to remember, first game is the worst game any team plays that year. And so if Houston's bad is extremely bad, it could go sideways for them, and SFA could get a chance. Now, if they take care of the ball, it's going to be hard for SFA without turnovers and without some help to do that. But I'll tell you, if it gets late and it gets tricky, Colby Carthel's a special teams guy, and he's not afraid to pull out a trick or two.
Well, you mentioned if it gets late, it's tricky. They are Thursday night, week 1. It is ESPN Plus, I guess, but that at this point is fairly mainstream as far as watching on TV goes. It is a big deal game, and frankly, Thursday night means you could have a whole news cycle to it on Friday if you wanted to. He's not the kind of guy that strikes me as looking ahead to Abilene Christian in week 2. Abilene Christian's a big game on his schedule, but he's going to be pretty focused on Houston, right?
It's funny because I was talking to some coaches. I was at the South Lake Conference opening drive, their media day in San Antonio. It's almost been a full month now since they started workouts and stuff. But and there were some coaches that are playing a couple of FBS teams there, and they talked about maybe trying to do a little NFL preseason, get the starters out, try to get through healthy. That's not Colby. That's just not him, man. He's going to come in there. If he's going to lace them up, he's going to try to win. And he's going to do everything in his power to try to get that victory for as long as possible. He will have them ready. Abilene Christian the next week, be a great reason for them to look past them, right? They beat Abilene Christian at home last year to end the season, the regular season. So the Wildcats are going to want revenge. It's in Abilene. It's another road game. Abilene was an FCS playoff team. They're supposed to be again this year. Like, that game could decide a playoff spot for the FCS, honestly. Week 2 could decide a playoff spot for FCS. It really could. It's a huge game. That still doesn't matter. Colby's going to try. If he has a chance to win, Colby's going to try to beat the Cougars.
Well, and I think that's interesting. You mentioned preseason. I think a lot of people from FBS fan bases would think of an FCS school as kind of that NFL preseason kind of thing. Houston hasn't played one of those since 2019. Hadn't played an FCS school since 2019. When they were in the American Conference, they were playing Power 4 schools to try and prove that they, could make that jump if someone gave them a chance. And now that they're there, they schedule these things so far, and this is the first opportunity they've had. And of course, as luck would have, they play one that's hoping to make the playoffs and make a name for themselves. Before, and I want to talk about what you're covering throughout the year in a second. Before we get to that, you mentioned all the things about Carthel and all the things about Stephen F. Austin, and all of that. I want to point out, this feels like a guy that's going to be like an SFA lifer at this point. This is not a coach trying to make a climb or anything. He's building it there, and that's interesting to me. As someone who sees so many coaches, you mentioned the UIW machine. Those guys are constantly looking for next. He could have left a minute ago.
Well, you talk about UIW machine. Eric left, GJ left. Clint Killow has stayed, and he's a UIW guy. I think Colby is extremely happy in Nacogdoches. news. I think that his family is really happy. It's a great location. They own a couple of HTOs there, right? They've got some strings and some ties there. He sees that as a place that he ends up retiring at. But the fact of the matter is he's got to win. And this is a big season for the Lumberjacks. There's a lot of things riding on this season for them. Oh, Thursday night, you mentioned Thursday night. You think Twitter and social media is not going to blow up if SFA is up like 7 or 14 on them in the third quarter, and you're going to get eyes and then, yeah, it could be really good for the Lumberjacks and really bad for the Cougars if Friday is what they're talking. If they're getting talked about on Friday, that's not a good thing for Houston.
No, it's not. Now, admittedly, I think we're talking about an upset that Houston's depth, whatever you think about Houston in the FBS and Big 12, I do think Houston's depth will prevail. I feel like
Houston. Don't get me wrong. Hey, look, if you're talking predictions, I pick Houston to win this game. But I'm saying there are scenarios where SFA could win.
Well, and I just don't think it. They're not. I don't know who the appropriate team would be. They're not Northwestern State is a program that's been kind of down lately, right? They're not like that. SFA is a rebuilding program that has had some success in recent memory. Cory, if people want to know more about SFA or any non-FBS school, you've been covering it for a long time, doing it very thoroughly, and your projects are changing a lot lately. What have you been working on? What's the latest?
Well, yeah, I departed Dave Campbell's Texas football, not my own doing, but life happens, business happens. So I have my own Substack now, CoryHogueSports.substack.com. I've got a podcast, Cut the Block podcast, that just premiered Wednesday night. It was its first episode. Check that out. Things are growing. Look, there's 35 teams in the FBS, and that number is going to grow to 36 next year when Schreiner comes in. There is a whole lot to talk about down here. A lot of players, a lot of NFL stars. Jalix Hunt, the Philadelphia Eagles, sacked Patrick Mahomes and had his doing the bow and arrow on the front page of ESPN. The guy came from Houston Christian, right? Yeah. And a couple of years ago, I was interviewing him in his senior years. He was getting selected for like the Reese's Bowl. So you've got talent. You've got NFL talent. Cam Ward played at UIW. Let's not forget that. They found him. They developed him, and he was special back then, right? Like everybody knew he was special. You get talent, and SFA has got some talent. They've got some dudes. It could get interesting on a Thursday night if Houston's not fully ready, but I think that their depth will take care of it. And if you want to know more about Stephen F. Austin or any of the other FCS, D2, D3, NAIA, JUCO, I've got them all right there. Any of them from Texas, I'll be covering them, talking about them as much as I can, as much as one man can on my Substack and social media.
It's a fascinating niche, and it frankly also is a valuable one because it doesn't. I think all of us see these schools like once a year, and it's a way to kind of keep up, yourself keeping up with them all year round, helps the rest of us stay on top of it. Before we get out of here, Lumberjacks, is that the best mascot in college football in Texas? Last thing.
I tell you, they have a 7-foot trophy now. They used to have if you look at their rivalry with Northwestern State, they used to have a chief. They can't bring out the chief anymore, but they had the chainsaw chick carve out a big post, and it's got Northwestern State half and SFA half. It is interesting. I don't know if they've got the best mascot, but they've got some of the best tradition, along with, I would say, probably Tarleton. They're probably up there with Tarleton as some of the best tradition in Texas FCS.
It's fun because, like, high school football, like the Cuero Gobblers or the Hutto Hippo, like, it's just a fun aspect of these, programs that are latched onto things that have been around for a long time. But Cory Hogue and Cory Hogue Sports. If you guys want to check out more on non-FBS football, thanks again, Cory. And hopefully, we're not coming back to you with like, how did this just happen on Friday after the game? But we're also weirdly, as this is being going live on Thursday, we're in game week, and so it's kind of weird to start a game week on a Thursday as well. So thank you for joining us today, Cory.
Hey, you bet, Parker. Thank you so much for having me, man. I'm always willing to come on and share what I can about these FCS teams early in the season. You know, it's a chance to show that I'm not just sitting at home doing nothing, right?
No, far from it. And people should go check out the Substack and podcast for proof, because there's a lot of work that goes into that. So thanks, Cory.
Thank you, Parker. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you again to Cory for stopping by. Again, great resource, all things non-FBS football. Highly, highly, highly recommend subscribing to the Substack and checking his stuff out as well. If you got non-FBS football needs, it's football. You've got all the needs. Let's just be honest. Now, last episode's trivia question was about Houston and Auburn. The last time, first of all, Houston-Auburn, the record, Houston is 2-5 all time against Auburn. But up until that recent Birmingham poll, they had not played since 1973, which I believe was one of, ironically, the championships I was giving to Houston and giving away championships yesterday. Now, today's trivia question, answer the comments down below. We'll answer it for you tomorrow. As we're talking about FCS opponents, Willie Fritz has been a little bit of everywhere, and he's rebuilt a lot of programs. A couple of those were in the FCS. My question is to you, what was Willie Fritz's record as an FCS head coach? Type it down below, his record, his wins and losses as an FCS head coach. I'm not going to tell you which schools it is. That's something you need to know for this as well. Now, thank you all for making Locked On Coogs your first listen today. For a second listen, Locked On at Big 12 as always. Locked On Coogs is primarily Locked On Podcast Network. That means your team every day. Go Coogs.